Hi everybody, welcome. It's 6:30 here, Monday. So you know where we are, right? We're at Tropical Nomad, and this is called SpeakuP Monday. Have a beautiful guest, Llana and Reece, who is a founder and director of ProEducation School Bali that we're going to get into in a minute. But for those of you watching, maybe from Australia or England or somewhere else around the world, maybe you've been to Bali before, but not in the last maybe 6 months. So I just want to update you on what's going on, right? So the mass tourism model that you used to know, the kind of bintang tourist, sorry guys, but you know what I'm talking about, that really isn't here. That mass tourism model has gone. Now, will it ever return? Jury's out. Maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2 years, or maybe it's never. We don't really know. But there's a new dimension to Bali that's opened up. And when it comes to tourism, it's more of a domestic Indonesian tourism from the domestic cities, right? So Surabaya, Jakarta predominantly, and so on, providing that migration to Bali, right? Now, outside of that, what we have, and we're here at Tropical Nomad, which is one of the epicenters of what I call this new dimension to Bali, which is what I call contribution tourism. Contribution tourism. So what does that mean? Contribution tourism. What is that? So what it means is that it's a type of migrator or traveler or visitor that's more culturally in step with Bali. There's someone who has that contribution mindset. So we're talking about tech tourism, incubators, accelerators, blockchain, sustainability. We're talking medical health tourism also. So these are the sorts of areas where myself as a tourism architect, this is what I facilitate, and I create tailored solutions for tourism boards and businesses either in Bali or who want to move or come to this great place called Bali so you can have success, right? So, and SpeakuP Monday, I told you it would be the longest intro ever. So SpeakuP Monday, as you know, this is number 204 or 205. It's 3+ years, and every single Monday providing this look into Bali and the people which are here and what's really going on, the stories inspirational of the people which are actually here in different areas of different areas of the fabric of Bali, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go to Guzman, or actually Ayub, just check the phone. Good. We're back online on Instagram Live. It was bugging out for a minute there, but I think we're back. Hello, everybody on Instagram Live. So, what do we do from here? Let's introduce you. So now, Llana, so we met, I believe, when we had a shop in Temora Gallery. Now, Temora Gallery here in Bali, full disclosure, I've been working with the Temora group for like 3 years, and Temora Gallery is this amazing family-focused lifestyle edutainment, that's education and recreation center here in Brawa. Very popular and just a really cool spot for all things to do with kids. And in this boutique retail therapy, health, food and beverage, and so on. But we met there when we had that Life in Bali shop. And the thing that struck me about you, like knowing that you had this great school called ProEducation School that always interested me was that, like, when you just met people, the sense I get of you is this really like determined, resilient, beautiful woman, right? So if I said to you, right, determined, resilient, beautiful woman, like why do you think, maybe something in your past, like why do you think, that's the person that you are, if I have it correct?
Well, hello everyone, first of all. I think perhaps because to create an education facility or school in Indonesia, it's extremely difficult, and it just doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years of hard work and perseverance to get it off the ground. The type of regulations that you have to overcome and work through, especially with the Department of Education and a whole range of other faculties, is very time-consuming And I think it definitely builds resilience and perseverance, and it's not as easy as setting up a cafe, and you've got a whole different ball game to encounter when setting up a centre with children that has to be of standard to make sure that it can withstand sort of occupational health and safety standards and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose it's been testing at times, but it's definitely pleasurable. Yeah.
You know, I get the sense from you that it's not your first rodeo. What I mean by that is that I get that creating, or part of it, that creating this facility, this incredible school that you have, and movement in a way, that it, especially here, it does take, for expats, foreigners coming to Bali, there's a bunch of things that you need to know, which if you watch all of these series of Speak Up Monday, you'll get to understand much better. But I get the sense that even before this, I think you were the same person, meaning I think that you were determined, you were resilient, you had these qualities already. So maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm not wrong, where do you think they come from? That's the point, that's the question.
I don't know. Well, I love sport, and I've done sport my whole life, so I think through sport I've learnt a whole range of different skills where you push through and you make it work. When I moved to Bali, first of all, I didn't work for myself and I didn't employ others. I worked for another company, the Australian International School, for about 6 years. And that gave me an understanding of education within Indonesia, and that certainly helped my journey. And it was with their support that I could launch ProEducation. And without that, it wouldn't have been possible at all. I definitely think if you are an entrepreneur looking to move to Bali and you're really interested in business and setting up here and having a go, you've got to live here and understand the place, the people, the customs, the religion, the all sorts of aspects of life here before you dive in deep and try and make it work. Yeah.
Beautiful answer. And, what comes up, which I think people are going to ask me anyway, so I better ask it first, right? So, like you mentioned that ProEducation you set up, probably two questions. So the first one would be, why did you set up ProEducation? And the second part of that question would be, if I'm using the right terminology, why do you think ProEducation is unique? Right, so first question is, why did you set it up? Second question, what makes it unique?
Well, I set ProEducation up because I actually wanted to work with more flexible hours and part-time. And I set up a learning centre in Umalas probably about 9 years ago. And me being myself, when I do something, I can't do it 50-50, I'm all in. And
got that vibe, right? The all-in vibe.
So I set up a learning centre, and that was doing very well, and we found a niche market, a group of students who were at risk, who needed care in the day and education and learning support. So we started a program, Youth Plus, and that program just blossomed and bloomed into the school I have now. And the school at ProEducation, we have about 200 students at present, and our max capacity is about 225. So we're very selective on who we take now. But I suppose the journey started with trying to help a group of at-risk youth, because that's my passion in teaching and education. And from there, I realised working part-time wasn't going to sustain those adolescents and support them with where they needed to go. So I decided to go all in and sort of make it work and try and create sort of pathway plans for those people to give them fuller school days and more opportunities. So yeah, it just grew from there, and I forgot your second question.
Good, no, but you know what? The interesting part is that with this, just so you know, like even though it's a Q&A, it's going to sound very weird. What I'm about to say is like, really? Are you sure? Like, it's not about answering the question; it's about what's triggered by the question. That's the thing that is coming forward, and that's what we want to hear. But the second part of the question was, and what do you think makes ProEducation unique? Yes, I have just lost this light. Yeah.
Okay, so from what I developed originally was a learning centre, and over time it grew into a program, and now we're an international school in Ummalas. So the product has changed over time, and the school has been, it's 3 years young, or 3.5 years young, and the school provides a different service than what I originally set up. So ProEducation is unique in that we're an inclusive international school in Ummalas. We're boutique in that we are deliberately small. We don't want to be a big school, never be a big school. We want to understand the stories of our learners. We want to know each and every individual child, their background, their history, their learning profile. And that's unique because we recognise individuals in a community, and some other international schools have larger class sizes and larger student populations, and that's not our game. We're a unique fish, and we like to be that, and we have really close relationships with our students, mentor relationships. We understand that in Bali, our students have parents that might be travelling, a transient population, so what we like to provide is a really consistent home for our students to come to, where our teachers love their students and mentor them and give them a safe space. And we're also unique in that we're the only school in Bali to have speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, counsellors, ed psychs, a whole range of support people in our community that add in like a plus difference to our community, as well as our school teachers. So that's really unique for the size of the school, a school of 220 students, to have those facilities on campus is quite special. And what it does to teaching and learning is it boosts teachers' knowledge, it expands their breadth of understanding of why people learn in different ways, and it allows us to build in therapy practices into the learning of the classroom, which is super cool, because we've had students before that come in who have difficulty speaking at the age of 11, or who find speaking might be a challenge, and our speech and language therapists will work with the whole faculty school-wide, from security through to the people in the kitchen, at the canteen, to our teachers, to the whole community abroad, and to sort of educate them on, this is the way we speak to this child, to put, if they're not speaking, less pressure on them to talk. This is the way we can phrase, statements instead of questions, and, by doing this, we can encourage a person to take that leap and speak. So we have great success in the school, and we are inclusive, so a portion of our population does have an area that we're trying to really target and work on. So that's how we're unique. And we're mainstream as well, like other schools, other international schools, but we're unique in that I think we give a really student-centred approach and care, pastoral care we call it, for our students. So yeah, it's a dream.
Love it. And I felt like a round of applause as well, right? Because it's great, like, meeting people who are absolutely about what they do, right? And you can feel that energy coming through, right? That you're absolutely, authentically saying what's true for you, right? Authentically saying, that's a bit of a double yes, right? But you're being very clear, and it's obvious for us, the passion that we feel from you of why you're doing it and why it's so good. So, you mentioned before, about learning styles, right? So there might be some parents watching now saying, okay, learning styles. Philosophically, I can think of a learning style, but I guess the question is, like, what do you mean by a learning style? And if you give us some examples, so a few examples of that, so maybe those watching at home can say, you know what, that sounds like my son, or you know what, that sounds like my daughter, and I think they're kind of in a round peg trying to fit into a square, yeah.
So I guess when you have small class sizes, the beauty is that teachers can differentiate fairly easily. So say you have 14 kids in a class compared to, say, 30. the teacher has a lot more time to meet the needs of that individual learner. So say I'm kinesthetic, so that's me totally. I can't actually learn by sitting down. I have a lot of problems learning by sitting down, and for myself, I get to 10-minute blocks and I need to get up and burn some energy. So if you've got a class with 3 kinesthetic learners and you've got some who are very visual or auditory, if it's a small class, that teacher can easily manipulate the information they're trying to share and break that down and create activities that suit those learning profiles. So in a larger classroom, that becomes a lot harder. So that's, I suppose, a learning style and, ways that teachers can support students with their different learning styles.
Got it. And when we look at maybe doing a bit of a helicopter, like remember, by the way, none of this is scheduled or set up, right? The questions come and we go with it, so we're going to do all over the place. So, future of education, right? So when I ask you, or even bring up that topic, what is the future of education? What comes up for you?
Well, it's different for different ages, of course. The future of education for high school students will rapidly change due to COVID and the online learning aspect. The digital age is now, we can see that students in high school and late upper primary years can really manage online learning and really enjoy an aspect of it. It's been challenging, I suppose, for those kids during the COVID the last 2 years to be online full-time, but there's definitely something really positive from that digital sort of space that you can see progress. And for some students who aren't sort of that confident or who have lower self-esteem, being a part of that digital classroom can be really beneficial. So I definitely think the digital space of education will revolutionise and change, because we've all experienced a completely different type of education the last 2 years with COVID and being online. I also think that schools need to recognise that the space in the next 20 years of different industries and employment is going to be very different than what it was 20 years ago. So there's new industries that are created all the time, and we don't even know what's to come and what are the different spaces that people might work in or jobs. So I think skills need to be really transferable, and the skills in high school particularly need to be taught to students that these skills are transferable for different industries and different types of work. And I think, and I hope that universities and tertiary education institutions will recognise that in the future. Communication, I think, needs to be something that's recognised as really strong. Communication is one of our strongest skills, particularly for the future, the digital age, when we're working overseas, online, through emails, through conferences, anything. And I think communication and leadership, in fact, are skills that really need to be implemented young for students to get that confidence, to understand that we don't just work in our local communities anymore, we work globally as global citizens. So I think it's digital, communications, leadership, it's global citizenship awareness, and I really think there needs to be a push on values as well in schools, because I think as students are more exposed to a global market and more of their time is spent online, students and people need to understand what they agree with, what their values are, what their belief systems are, so that when they read information and learn stuff, they have that strong sense of self. And
I love that, right? And what comes up is that I was English born, and English born, London, right? So I went through all of that, primary, secondary, tertiary, university, all of that. But what I noticed growing up was that it's the biggest joke, in a way, between us, which was this, we go to school, we learn stuff, right? And then, it's like rote style. I'm the teacher, you listen to what I'm saying, blah, 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 blah. That's what it sounded like. And then you retain that knowledge for as long as you can, and then you have this thing called an exam. And then you walk into the exam room, careful to keep your head level, because you don't want any of this information to drop out, right? Before you get to your exam. And then when you get to the exam, it's like you vomit all this information, boom, onto the paper, right? I know you can relate to me, right? Onto the paper, and someone says, oh yes, you've passed. And you got to tick a B, an A, day or whatever it might be. And it's like, I've learned it. And then you continue just to forget everything that you were supposed to have learned. Yeah. And you never use it anyway. So it's like you have all of these university grads, coming out. I've got this, I've got that. But there's nothing for them. There's no job for them. So it almost felt like there's this big kind of miss going on, which you kind of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you kind of spoke about a little bit in your answer before, which is about, how do we make it relevant? You mentioned about digital and all these things coming in. How do we make it relevant now? I'll give you one example. There's a place in Europe, can I remember it? The e-capital of the world. Not Romania, Estonia. Boom, there it is. So, what I found out, hopefully is true, and it wasn't a lie, but what I found out was that the youngest kids from very early on, this happened from about 2 years ago, I think it was, that I found out about it, are being taught coding from very, 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 very young, right? And then I was thinking, okay, coding and all that technology, digital, all of that stuff, great. That's the future. Okay, tick. And then I'm thinking, but what about nature? What about rolling in the mud? What about getting out there? What about communication and these soft skills between people? Look people in the eye, have a conversation, say, I dig what you're saying, and all these higher learning skills. Then I found out that as an afternoon, they put on these specially designed suits, and they go out into the wilderness, because Estonia is like a big, wood, forest, trees, all of that, and they literally go rolling around, running in the mud, and do all this stuff. And I was thinking, damn, if that's the case, right, in 5, 10, 15 years, that's where the future's coming from, because they're investing early in it. So then comparing those two, this traditional kind of Western-based out of the UK, compared to that, I see a massive chasm. And then what I see is that people like me coming out, there weren't really jobs for us. We're out of step with what's required. So now there's all this relearning having to go on. So when I speak about that, what comes up for you?
Look, definitely we're always going to have to relearn every, few years. There's research that shows that we're going to have 8 different careers in our life, different industries now for the younger generations that are coming through. So schools need to be able to show that students have, a breadth of knowledge in a range of different areas, and that's inquiry-based. That's not just, regurgitated knowledge-driven. It's inquiry-based, so that they're questioning what they're learning and how they're learning it, and they've got the skills to research the correct answers. So, but that's happening now. Lots of great schools already have inquiry-based, and it starts at the age of 3 years old in early childhood years. And there's some great schools in Bali that have that approach. And we're very lucky in Bali. There's all different types of schools in Bali. We've got schools that are really focused on eco. We've got schools that are focused on very traditional aspects. We've got the Montessori approach, and Bali's quite spoiled in that we have lots of different approaches for parents to choose, and lots of these schools have an inquiry-based approach. So we're quite lucky in Bali, spoiled in fact, that we have such an access to these sorts of services. But there is definitely a shift that's coming through, and I do think the online, the digital aspect of COVID, with students studying online, it's harder for students to have an inquiry-based approach, particularly in the younger years, because it's more teacher-driven online, just to keep them focused. But I do think once schools open up and things are back, in fact, in the inquiry-based approach will be what kids crave more, because they need that communication, they need that play, because they haven't had it recently. So it's coming in a big way.
Well, that's great to hear. Look, I have 2 kids, 5 and 7. You have kids as well. And, it's interesting because Marina, my partner, who you've met, we often talk about it, right? It's like, well, they're young. They're not really at a school. They go to Kumon, which is a great place. Thank you, Kumon. Little plug. Didn't mean that, by the way, but it just happens. But we're like, what is important? What do we think as parents is important? And what we've come down to is that maths, English, learning to read, learning to write is super important. Outside of that, we really, truly feel that creativity and nurturing that is of our prime concern, right? Because the way that AI and the future is being driven, it's like a lot of occupations, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying before, are going to be obsolete by the time these ones grow up to the age of working, whatever that age that might be. So it's like, well, how can we best arm our kids' arm? How can we best give the best skills, attributes, right, for our kids to be successful in their lives? And I'll also kind of meld this one together as, you know, it also feels like the educative system in general, not including ProEducation and some of the other schools you mentioned, the educative system in general has been one that has reared slaves. And I mean that not literally, but what I'm saying is about the mindset, how to be an employee. Call it straight, as opposed to, I'm not saying anything wrong with that, by the way, because I've been an employee, I've been an entrepreneur, nothing wrong with it. But what I'm saying is that, you know, if we can create this and nurture this creativity, there's things which haven't been invented yet, that if we can nurture this creativity in our kids, maybe they're going to be the next Louis Pasteur, the next Elon Musk, who knows? What comes up?
I definitely think they're good points, but I also think structure is really important for children. I think with structure it gives them a feeling of safety and that they feel like that they can predict what's coming and they can prepare themselves. I also think wellbeing is a massive aspect that the future will incorporate into education. Like if you're talking core subjects, reading, writing and science, wellbeing is an area that needs to be, for me, adopted just as important, because knowing how your body works, your body in space and a community, how your mind works, understanding your emotions, where you are in, you know, a different part of the world, understanding different types of religions, you know, all those sorts of different things through wellbeing is just as important as, you know, for me, literacy and numeracy and science, and I think that that's going to build wonderful global citizens for the future. Structure's definitely important for me. You know, I've got 2 boys, so structure works well in my home. Without it, it's chaos. So, yeah, for me, it's not just reading, writing, and sort of numeracy and literacy and science. Exploration, I think, is really important, and exploration outdoors, because I think, you know, with this digital age, young people are inside more, and they're on tablets more, or they're on screens more, and I think the freedom to play and create in your garden at home, or that exploration, and having that sort of downtime where you don't have something planned and your mind wanders and you can entertain yourself, I think that that's a really important skill, even for the older students in high school. You know, being able to be alone and entertain yourself is an important aspect of, you know, being at one with yourself. Yeah, so I think, you know, structure, literacy, numeracy, it's, you know, connecting with your environment around you, well-being, yeah.
You know, I'm loving this, Llana. Loving it. Loving it, Llana. And that rhymes as alliteration, by the way. Loving it, Llana. Anyway, you know, like I said, it's unscripted, right? What comes up, which I love to hear, and I'm loving hearing as well, right? So very quickly, I think, I'm not sure if I ever told you, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But I grew up in 2 children's homes, right? Orphanages from 6 months of age to 18 years of age. So many things I was exposed to very, very young. But one of the best things that happened to me was getting this true understanding of unity. Right, so we're here in Indonesia, no coincidences, right? Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, unity and diversity, right? Same thing. But one of the most special things that you just touched upon was this, you know, this seeing each other as equal, right? Seeing each other through this unity gaze, like our kids play with, you know, they speak Balinese, they speak Indonesian, and they speak English. English, okay. I need to do a little bit more. Yeah. So, but they don't see color, right? They don't see these things. They just see other people, and so part of what we're investing in with them is this ability to, you know, to talk about your feelings. This ability to think about things which are spiritual in origin. We're here in Bali, the island of the gods, right? Can't avoid spiritual, right? When it comes to nature. epic fail. Like I took our kids to Jiwa Garden, some guys I introduced you to who were on the show a couple of weeks back. Permaculture, amazing men on a great mission, right? Really, really cool. So it was after like the rainstorm, so it's pretty muddy, and it's about, you know, permaculture and all composting and all the rest of that. So our two girls go in, and I'm not saying they cried a lot, but they weren't so comfortable with the outdoors and nature. It was like, you know, like if being a parent, you know, that thing of like, you know, are you embarrassed? It's like, of course I'm not. You know you are. It's just like, we've got some work to do with our kids. But again, that aside, you know, I love what you're saying about this really holistic approach is what you're talking about, you know, to how do we educate our children, how do we guide our children in the best direction for them and for the planet going forwards, which I love, right? So that's really great to kind of hear. When it comes to things like sex education, like where's that up to? Because I remember, again, unscripted, I drop in, I ask a question, sometimes I wonder, what the hell? But it's important. I remember, you know, when we were at school, you know, sex education was like 16, 17. And then, you know, I look at other people's kids and they're like, they're getting crazy at like 12, 13. I'm like, what the heck? And I'm thinking that it's getting younger and younger and younger. But I mean, how do you, maybe as a mom, maybe you as ProEducation, like, how do you approach this kind of area? Hey, these are the questions.
It's hard because you're in a diverse community, and in our school we might have all different religions. Yeah. So it is optional for parents to make a choice for children to enter, you know, classrooms where we have particular conversations about, you know, the body or, sharing of emotions and all that sort of stuff. So it is an optional, choice for parents and students to engage in that. It definitely exists, but sometimes, most often, students already know a little bit about the topics before they come into contact with the classroom content, and you can't help that. It's exposure through being online or through Facebook or through, you know, telling stories with friends. They come in and you assume there's no understanding, but in fact, you know, if you put a box in the room and you ask students to put a question on it, the questions you get from there are really quite detailed and well above the age that you expect. So sex education, I guess, sort of can start around grade 4. It could start grade 3, not in terms of sex education, but I mean my body and how it changes can start fairly early.
Which age is that? Sorry, I had to ask.
Well, it's different in different curriculums. I would have to go through my curriculum, which is...
Roughly, we're talking like, is that 8, 9, 10,
6? 8 years old, where students start to learn about their body and how it changes, you know. Small things might be, you know, I need to wear deodorant because of this, or my body might change because I'm feeling a different type of desire because, you know. But it is definitely in schools, particularly some international schools, it's a choice because religion and parents' sort of beliefs play a part in it. In Bali, I've found in my experience that parents tend to be fairly open with their young children, or not young children, their children, and I think that's, you know, a positive benefit here. There's no sort of, it's spoken about in the home quite openly. There's lots of dialogue, and I think that builds awareness. It also builds this sort of sense that you can go to a parent or an adult and ask for help if you need. So I've seen that definitely in my experience in teaching, that in Bali with sexuality and your body and how it changes, there's an openness with it. And that's just our community. And I like that about Bali. I like that people have an openness to difficult conversations. And I know our students, particularly in our school, know that they can come and talk to their teachers or the school counsellor at any time to sort of seek advice about, you know, what is age appropriate, or, you know, is this a normal emotion, or how can I get some guidance with this? So, when I've worked in schools in Australia, they were very different settings, large schools, 1,200 kids, not as personal. You might not know the student's last name. You've never met their parents. They're never going to come and ask you a question to do with their sexuality. It's just not going to happen. Those opportunities don't exist. Working in larger state schools, that's my background. But in Bali, the schools I've worked in Bali, my school and the other school I've worked in here, there's definitely that openness because there's that mentorship. And it does, it happens quite organically. Yeah.
You know, there might be some people here, watching. By the way, you're doing extremely well. What a natural, right? Isn't she? She's like, I knew you'd be a natural. She's like, I'm not sure. I love it. It's great. So, maybe there's people here who are watching. Maybe they're from Australia, UK, or somewhere else, and they're wondering, so I want to come to Bali. I love the place, the culture, and these experiences, right? That is number one on TripAdvisor for the most desired place to be in the world, 2021. But it's like, but what is the difference, between the schools and I know it's a tremendous generalization based on the type of school, because you've got you've got all those different types of school, Anton Steiner, in Sydney as well. But the more mainstream schools, if I asked you, what would be the differences, do you think, between schooling in Australia, for example, and schooling in Bali for those looking to come with their kids?
I think it's definitely a community from my experience. I know all the parents in my school, well, most of them. I know their stories, their backgrounds. There's dialogue between the families and the teachers and the students and the parents quite consistently. I know many international schools abroad are like that, not just Bali, but some smaller international schools as well model that. Some other differences is that there's some negative differences. It's not all positive here. The facilities are definitely different in schools in Bali. If you go to a private school, for instance, in Melbourne or Geelong, where I'm from, private schools definitely have larger and bigger facilities. They're not necessarily better, but they're definitely on a larger scale than schools in Bali. So there's some differences that can be better abroad in different countries than Bali, because it is a smaller place and the populations in schools are smaller, so the facilities tend to be smaller. It just depends on what experience you want, what you're moving here for. And people move here to Bali for different things. Some people move here because they want a holiday lifestyle for a few years, some respite. Other people move here because they want to engage in a local community. And that's a difference you're not going to get in a school in Australia, for instance. You're not going to get a school with, 40 to 50% of staff in the classrooms are, Indonesian, and you're not going to hear other languages as much as you're going to hear here. So in my school, we have 42 different nationalities, and you'll get that
42.
Yes, and you'll get that in your sort of urban schools in, say, Melbourne or Sydney. But if you were going to a school in Tasmania, in the countryside, you're not going to get 42 nationalities. Yeah. So it's a melting pot of different, customs, religions, nationalities that you're going to get in schools here. Diversity. So it's not any better here or any worse somewhere else. It's just a different thing.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I've always wanted to ask that question of someone who's an educator, actually. I just popped in. So another thing that comes up is that, what I realized, right, it's going to make you laugh. It makes me laugh even thinking about the fact I'm about to talk about it. And I know you're like, but by the way...
better not be another sex question.
I know! Like a little diversion. Like, I acknowledge you, right? Because, when I asked you, to come and be a guest, because I think very highly of you, without even knowing you really well, but I feel like I know a little bit of you, which was enough for me to say, I think you make a great guest, and I believe I've been proved correct. But one of the things that comes up is that, like a kid at school here in Bali, it's been said that, when kids get to a certain age in Bali, like if they're young kids, then Bali's a great place. But as they get older, there's things here, maybe not the same, let's say, structures and guidelines that there is in maybe Australia or somewhere else. So then once kids here reach those teenage years, 16, 17, 18, 19, it's like people are saying, maybe we should leave the island and go somewhere else and all the rest of that. So if I said that to you, what's your view on that?
It depends on your child. So I have two very different children. They're different to each other. One, Bali might be a great place for that person, and the other might be a disastrous place for that person. And I think it really depends on who that person is and what their where their boundaries lie and how consistent they are as a person, and is no, like, are they going to get on a motorbike and have a few beers, or are they going to respect the rules of the home and listen to your guidance? Like, I think it really depends on, the way that they're receptive, the relationship they have with their parents, and are they actually going to work together with you on getting the best result? I do know that I have seen some students who have had a difficult time in Bali growing up, and they've accessed all sorts of different sort of party scenes and different areas, and that it is concerning. But I have also seen another group of students who do the right thing and keep in line and have achieved tremendously. Look, the dangers here for adolescents do exist in the West as well. Binge drinking culture is a massive part of teenage years in Australia. It doesn't matter where you are. It's all about, values, boundaries, being consistent. It's about making sure that parents know where their children are at all times. It's like anywhere. It can be a little bit more frightening because motorbikes exist. But I do think schools and education here, they will get a personal service, not just in my school, but in lots of schools here, because lots of the high schools here have small numbers. So students in high school get really personalised attention, and it can actually be a benefit, particularly for those students who might struggle or need more guidance, or who are gifted and they have that opportunity to really excel. So I'm biased though. I've been here a long time in Bali, and I do think that Bali can have some benefits to being here in adolescence, but it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone.
Yeah, great answer. The other thing, just on what you're saying before, so, okay, I have a few friends who are teachers, right? Only a few, and kids. So it's a bit of a comparison, but it's not supposed to either uplift or put someone down. It's just an easy way for people watching to get a sense of difference. So teachers. So growing up in the UK, I remember that where I was growing up, and again, orphanage, so tough place for some people to grow up. The teachers were having to be parents, right? So it was really tough for them. And moving to Australia, I know that many teachers didn't feel respected for the work they put in, because to me the teachers are some of the most important people in the world to me, because I get through being a coach and all this other stuff that I've done, that these formative years, 0 to 8, where our brain is plastic and we just imbibe, and that's what we become. I really get the importance of it, and I get that, that teachers aren't supposed to be parents. But in many other parts of the world, I say the West, the places where I've been, I know that actually is the case, and it's not fair, right? So if maybe someone's watching here and thinking, okay, so, all right, in Australia, I feel that, most teachers are not feeling as joyous or respected because the support isn't there, because I'm not their parent, but I'm being forced to be that, because the parents are not there mentally, emotionally, and all that stuff. I come to Bali, do you think, in general, that the parents here are more present with their children and contribute more to the lives of their kids? I know it's a tough question, but hey, we're here. But I just love to, because I'm really interested in your opinion.
I think we're lucky that in Indonesia, teachers are highly respected.
Okay.
As a profession, teaching is a highly respected profession. If you go into a local village and you say that you're a teacher, people will sort of bow to you and thank you for your service. So it's a huge part of culture here, teaching. Yeah. So I think that we're lucky in our schools that sort of awareness exists, and particularly it's not just the expat children that learn that culture, but it's also our local Indonesian children that are in the schools demonstrate that. So teachers are highly respected in Indonesia, and I think that fosters a really supportive environment for teachers and a community. Look, parents in Bali come here for all different reasons, and I think that we can't stereotype. We have highly professional families that might work out of Singapore or Jakarta and base themselves here. We have some families who don't work at all because they have investment properties and are highly engaged day to day. We have other parents that might be here to sip cocktails on the beach every afternoon. But everyone is so different here, as also in different countries abroad. Of course, you get different types of parents in different types of schools. Some schools have a requirement that parents must engage a certain amount of time. So then you'll naturally have a community that's really sort of fostering and supportive. So I don't really want to comment on that.
No, but you actually did, because remember, it's not always about answering the question. So that was triggered by the question, and again, like, I love your approach, right? Because again, like, some of these questions are actually coming from me, some are not, right? And things I've always wanted to ask. So it's been really fun and interesting and engaging for me, as I'm sure it is for everyone here, to actually hear some of these answers, right? And again, it's we know it's subjective, we know it's your opinion, and I think you're doing brilliantly, actually. Yeah, you really, right? Yeah. See, exactly, right? Okay. So another question that came up, there's two of them. So one is that it really surprised me, when I was growing up, and I realized that schooling is a business. Like, I don't know what I thought. Maybe I thought that, hey, the school is free, government subsidize everything, and away you go. But then coming here as well, I guess it's more clear to me that, by the way, I'm pro-business, right? I'm pro, I understand that NGOs have their place. I have a lot of friends who are doing a lot of NGOs, non-profit, and I think it's awesome. The one lady, and I hope she won't mind me quoting her, but anyone know Margaret Barry here? Yeah? Bali Children's Foundation, one of the longest running successful children's foundations here in Bali, right? I remember we had a conversation a long time ago, this is part of the Tomorrow Gallery conversation we support, and then what she said was, look, Rob, one of the most important things, and again, she's very understanding of non-for-profit and charities and all the rest of that, but what she's saying is that ideally for you, it would be great to get the business to a point where it's profitable. And with that profit is then what you can invest into a foundation and all the rest of that, which I thought was, again, now I think of it and think, well, of course, but at the time it wasn't in my awareness, right? So then my question to you, knowing that pro-business, if it's not making a profit in this sense of the word, how can you continue doing that thing? How can you continue giving that service at that level, right? So I guess then the question is, people here might be thinking, okay, I'm sold, I want to come to Bali, whether it's ProEducation or one of these other schools, go to ProEducation, right? But what's the expense, right? So
look, schools aren't cheap anywhere internationally. If you're an expat and you want your child to go to an international school, you're definitely going to be paying for it. Private schools are, fee-based, and it's only a minority of schools that have scholarships, and there's very stringent criteria for those schools with scholarships, and often they go to local communities. Look, schools as a business, it does exist. ProEducation is a private school. I created the school, but I'm also I'm the founder, but I'm also an educator. I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher. So I guess I'm uniquely positioned in a role as director where I can make decisions about how we spend our money, our income. We can, our school, if you look at the history of it, it's developed quite fast. We've put a lot of our sort of infrastructure and income into redeveloping our campus, and that aspect of making the learning experience has to exist in any private school. It can't just be profit. And that's, wonderful for a board of shareholders, but it has to exist that we're constantly improving that student experience, and that learning experience is going to get better and better as the years go on. So I think being an educator and being in a director role is difficult for my partners because I'm always fighting for, we want this resource, we want more of this, how can I get this, when can we build this, what can we do to make the student school experience better. And I do see a lot of that. Internationally, I do see a lot of small schools starting out and people trying to create better and better student experiences. It is very hard in Indonesia to be a school for profit. It's very difficult to be opened as a PMA, so a school that can legally make profit. Generally, private schools are opened as yayasans and foundations, and that's a really tricky thing to open a school that is a PMA. And there's not many in Indonesia, and it takes years and years, and it's taken me years and years, hence the perseverance, not just for developing the right model, but to get the licensing to be a school for profit, so that it can legally turn out a net profit at the end of every month. So, but I'm an educator, so I definitely overspend and buy way too many things for our students. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear. Wow. By the way, people in the audience here, and you can come to the audience, so be live, it's free, you don't pay anything, and you get to ask questions too. So in a little while, if you have any questions in your mind, maybe just write them down, and you can put Llana on the spot. Did I say that, put Llana on the spot? No, I didn't say put Llana on the spot.
I've been on the spot all night.
But you've done so well, and I knew you would. What's left in my head? So, is there anything, that you would like to see, maybe in the next 5 or 10 years, education, either in Bali or outside of Bali, wherever you feel like going to?
I definitely have areas of education I would like to see. I would like to see more international schools being more inclusive and providing more learning support programs, not just for students who can achieve their GCSEs or their A-levels or their IB diploma. I'd like to see a vocational push in international schools for students globally, particularly in Asia, Southeast Asia. I do think that it will challenge a lot of schools to do this well. I have an area in education in special needs that I love, and that I feel that it's really important that all schools have an aspect where there's inclusivity. And I do want that to be challenged in years to come. And I do want schools to have more vocational aspects and more links with the real world, so that senior students have work experience placements and different things like that, because expat kids, they have limited opportunities because of their visas. But I do think that one thing sort of Western countries have is you can get a job at 14, and that builds so much more to learning besides being at school. It puts learning into practice, and I really hope that international schools try and make those connections and pathways for those students who aren't just academically driven, for those students who might go into sort of a TAFE training area and not into university education. That's what I would like to see.
Love it. And I don't know if you have these numbers, and you don't need to tell us about ProEducation, but in general, if there's like a variance, do you think, what would an international school cost in Bali, if you can remember, in general?
Well, it varies. Some school, it depends. Say we talk about a 10-year-old student, you might start at about $8,000 and you might go up to $17,000.
And is that a year?
A year.
A year, and that's
AUD.
Australian dollars?
Yep. Yeah.
And then a bit older?
So if you're talking senior years, the last 2 years of education, you might be looking at about $15,000 up, and it could go to $30,000.
Great, thank you. I know people would ask that question, right? So thank you for that. And so there was a lady, her name is Bianca Raby. I think I tried to connect you. No, I haven't, but I must. So Australian lady, educator based, and she was in Australia for a while, and she went through her experiences. She's got her opinions about education, and found that it was a place that wasn't, in a way, allowing her to flourish in the way that she wanted to. So consequently ended up leaving Australia, setting up a company called OPIDA. So OPIDA, so O-P-P-I-D-A. So O-P-P-I-D-A. And OPIDA is a learning designer. Okay, so learning designers, I knew nothing about this till I interviewed her some months ago. So a learning designer is, what she was telling me is that the opt-in online courses, the ones you pay for, a very low percentage are actually completed, like less than 8% are actually completed. And the reason why is because the way that they're created is based upon a system that fundamentally fails. She probably wouldn't use that same terminology. I'm paraphrasing, so it's on me. What I mean by that is that it's this rote style of learning, right? It's like, I'm the teacher, you're the student, kind of what I said earlier on, do as I say, da-da-da-da, and away you go. What a learning designer does is that it takes that content, and it's not only education, it's any online course. So the applications are limitless. Any company that has any manual or any system of online learning when it comes to its staff, for example. So it's huge. And, so what a learning designer does is go back and say, well, okay, so what are our aims? What are our outcomes? How do you know what are the milestones that would tell you that this student has understood what you're actually trying to teach? And if they haven't, what is the pathway for them to loop back around and to relearn, but learn it so they actually understand, not this put it in my head and then save it up, balance, go to exam, throw it out on a piece of paper, forget everything, right? It's opposite to that. And her company's grown quite immeasurably over a fairly short period of time, has staff working remotely all over the world. So I guess the question, that I'd ask you is that, as you sit in both worlds, which is amazing, as a director and as an educator, how open are you to learning yourself, meaning to add those elements to the business that maybe don't make sense right now, but in the future may do? What comes up?
Learning. I love learning, but it's got to be practical. Yeah. And it's got to be through a team myself and working with other like-minded people or a diverse group of people. If I had to sort of read a manual and participate in an online black and white text course on a screen, there's no way. Yeah. Teaching's not a career where you can learn just by reading and trying to complete. Yeah. Teaching is through experience, and it's one of the professions that the older you get and the longer you are in the classroom, if you're engaged, the better you become. And having in your team at school a few senior teachers with 30 years experience is invaluable. It's so for me, that's how I would learn. I would go to someone who's had a diverse range of experiences, and I would be learning from them through modelling. There's no way I could sit on a screen and try and learn directly off a screen. I attempted to do my master's through Deakin University with special education, and it was one of the reasons why I put it on hold, because there was no context to it. Yeah. I didn't feel the substance with it, and actually with what I was creating with ProEducation and our Towards Independence program, I was feeling more understanding and self-development because it was hands-on, and I was with other educators that were giving me sort of that I could feel it every day. Whereas when I did the masters online, I really struggled. And in fact, I had other people reading the stuff and helping me learn it, because it's just too dry. Yeah. It's too dry. So for me, I think for teachers to become better educators, it's through team teaching. It's through someone else doing observation and giving you some hot tips, and for students to give you their feedback. Sitting and doing a course, it's just not going to work for me.
Yeah, and it mirrors the conversation I had with Bianca as well, because that's what she does actually. She builds in real world teams and to give you that feedback and all the rest of that. So it's just interesting to hear you. Now, one thing that you've said maybe 4 or 5 times, which I want to dig a bit deeper into, I think it's important, right? Special needs. So when you say special needs, what do you mean exactly?
So people actually think that special needs is, your students who need more severe support. Maybe they're non-verbal, or students who might be cerebral palsy, who might have a physical disability. But special needs can be a medical, something medical as well. If a student has diabetes, it needs support as well with insulin during the school day. So special needs is, I suppose, it's not, I don't know if it's a kind way of sort of talking about a population, but it's talking about a group of people really that need a little bit of extra attention and support. So it could be supporting someone with some anxiety or self-esteem. It doesn't have to be that person is on the autistic spectrum. So it's about an inclusive community for me, where everyone is seeing that they're an area that's weaker can be then developed as a superpower later on. We all have to work on something, and it's okay that some people have a little bit more to work on and others have different skills to work on. And that's why in our school we have such an inclusion policy, because we are a community, and if you go out into your local community, there's all sorts of people that have different areas that are strengths and areas they need to develop. So having a school that is inclusive and having a group of people with more needs, or a group of people who learn different things from other people, means that when we go out into the real world one day, we've got more understanding. And if we can build that understanding in when we're younger with our students, then there's more compassion, kindness, acceptance, there's more tolerance to difference. But as well, we can learn that it's okay to be different in one way as opposed to another person. So I really want to create that environment for our students. And I really want those students who do struggle day to day, who do find it hard to feel accepted in a place, feel that they have a home that they can come to daily, and that their needs are overlooked, and there's a person beyond that. That person has dreams and aspirations and desires and likes and dislikes like all of us have. So it's not so much special needs is the word that I think that needs to be focused on. It's about making sure that everyone is inclusive within a community. And that's, we see that in our school. And I also see that beyond school as well. So in Bali as well. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Got it. Wow. So the third microphone, Brother Guzman or Sister Bella, yeah. So now, if any of you have a question, now whether one comes to your mind or not, let me know. Just raise your hand, and the microphone will come to you, and feel free to ask your question. No. Llana's going, don't ask me any question. Don't ask me. I've had enough questions. No. Don't ask me a question. But listen.
It's really warm sitting up here.
I know. I've got a few fans on, but not too many. I just want to acknowledge you really. I believed that you would be an amazing guest, and you are. Really. No, but you're very straightforward, very clear. And you have a direction, right? So there's no misunderstanding here. Very clear, and leadership. You have the qualities of leadership, which is why you do so well. It doesn't come as any surprise to me. Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, what's next in my head? So, let's give ProEducation. So, if people want to, come or want to find out more, how can they find out more about ProEducation? Where can they find you?
I think the best thing to do is go onto Instagram. It's not a usual thing to go to Instagram for a school, but I think having a look at the content on there is a great way to see the school. It shows the facilities, the students. It also has, you can contact through Instagram to our enrolment officer. I think that's a great place to start. And then you can bounce onto the website to get sort of more factual information about the curriculum, how the school day runs, what it looks like to be a student there. Or you can show up at the office and then make an appointment that way. Yeah.
So then if somebody like a parent wants to come and kind of check it out and just to see what it's like, do you have like open days and that sort of thing as well, or how do you handle that part?
We do always do trials before entry and enrolment into the school, and normally a 2-day trial minimum, just so that the student can have an experience, see if it's a place they like, but so that we can also meet the family and the student and see if we can actually meet their needs. Because we're highly serviced, sometimes it's important to understand that child's learning profile before sort of ticking that box and saying, yes, we can educate you. We don't do that. We're quite thorough at the beginning to make sure that this is not someone that's just going to blow in and blow out fairly quickly. We want a sustained population. One reason is we want our kids that when they make a friend, that friend is with them for a few years, not rushes off in 6 months, because we want a community that's stable, because we want to learn the stories so that we can then develop those learning profiles and improve their skills. So we are a little bit picky, but that's okay. We are inclusive. Get onto Instagram, send a message to Miss Julia, or send a message to the admin office. Try and get a place as early as possible. We're almost at full capacity, so don't leave it too long. Try and get in at least 6 months ahead of time.
Got it. And then which age to which age?
Our reception program starts at 4 years old, and we go through to GCSE and A-level. We're British curriculum, so we go through to the end of 18 years old. So we have a primary school and a high school.
Got it. Wow. Now, any questions from anybody? So I'm not going to ask a question. I know one of you has a question. Don't be afraid. Just raise your hand. She's thinking about it. She's looking. There it is. No, she doesn't want to ask. All right, Ichi, you have a question? Yeah, Ichi has three children and four dogs. I think last week I said 4 dogs and 3 children. four children and 3 dogs. But just to clear that up, 3 children and 4 dogs.
Hi, Llana. Thank you very much for sharing about your amazing school. I think it's schooling in Bali is very unique, and I think it's really wonderful that there is solution for every child's needs, because I think a lot of like myself, we also have a child that is a little bit sensitive about certain things. We suspect that probably she's a little bit special. Not that, that's so special and that we, it's so different. But, each child has its own personality, and sometimes we struggle to find a education environment that is, matching for the child. I often realize that it is there's a temperature between some of the teachers. There's some teachers that have a very huge, passion and maybe on fire, trying to really do things. And then there are some teachers that are more business-like, because they come from, maybe perhaps working in the, international schools, and they are more like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, and then I'm able to provide this, and then beyond that is, sorry, that's not my kind of responsibility. I know that this is really, like, parents will always have huge expectations, and I know that it's hard it is also to manage their expectations, and also still trying to help and still trying to really be, connect with a child and provide the best education for that child, adapting curriculums and all that, which I understand that you do amazingly, and that you are supporting a lot of special children, and absolute respect on that. But how do we maintain that passion and energy on a teacher? Because I know that is one of the most difficult things sometimes, because it's tough. I know how teachers, go through. So if you could
look, burnout's a real thing for teachers. If teachers aren't supported, they don't have adequate planning time. If teachers don't feel that there's leadership that's supportive, burnout will happen, and it can happen as early 5 years within a career. In our classrooms, we have 2 teachers that are always present with our students to make sure that when teachers are teaching, they're on. And that's really helpful for teachers, so that they team teach and they share the load. Teaching's a career that's a blood group, and I call it a blood group because I believe that some people are born to teach. Some people have that. You put them in front of a class of children and they're an absolutely different person. And teaching is, for me, when you interview an educator and you meet a teacher, you can definitely pick up on, are they a part of that blood group, and do they have that sort of that drive to be with young people, and that patience and persistence. And it's for me, the people that we employ are definitely a particular type of blood group, but we're all different, and it's so important that a school has different types of teachers, because students have to learn that people are different, not just that they're peers in the classroom, but it's okay that one teacher's really bubbly and another teacher talks very quiet, so that the population has to listen. But definitely schools have personas of teachers that they like to employ. One school might like, teachers in shirts and pants and ties and a real business look, where other schools might have very informal settings where it's very acceptable to have a very close relationship with your teachers. So different schools are going to give students different experiences. And I think what's important is to look at, a leadership team and ask them what qualities that they look for when they hire people, because that gives a parent an understanding of what their child is with every day, day in, day out. I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah. It's amazing that there are always kind of like checking in with your teachers and staff, and so that they are able to perform, and they're able to be sensitive for each child's needs. That's amazing that you're doing that, and yeah, thank you very much for explaining that too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
It's a good question for you. So if there's a parent watching and they're saying, okay, so I get a sense of you, Llana, I get a sense of the school that you're running, I'm going to go online, I'm going to check it out. I get a sense of where you see education going, which I think is so important. And you mentioned before about learning styles, which I think is really good. So if you're a parent and you need to choose where to send your child, which things do you think would be important? Now, I'll give you a little bit more direction with this. Say your child is between 5 and 7, right? What if there's a little checklist or something that comes up for you? The school, wherever you're going to send them, needs to do this, this, and this, but you need to start with this. What would that look like? Just to get a sense.
Oh gosh. Well, look, for me, I look for different things in my school for both my kids. It's a hard question. It's really based on what that parent, values.
Yeah.
like for me, it's really important that my kids are happy to go to school each day and they're challenged, but they're not challenged to a point where it's difficult to go to school. So there's a balance that I would be looking for, that there's rigour in the curriculum, but then there's also graciousness and kindness in that student's experience as well. So as a parent, that's what I would be looking for. I would also be looking for structure, because one of my little boys needs a little bit of that, and that works really well for him. So I had him in another setting before that was a bit more free flow, a bit more inquiry-based, a little bit more outdoor play, and that wasn't actually working well for him. And I made the change into our school, into our reception program, and there was just a little bit more teacher to student ratio was higher. There was a little bit more indoor sit down quiet time, and he's learnt new skills that I didn't think he'd be picking up on so quickly. So I think it's, you know, as your children become older, you understand, and of course you can see what is working for them more. But I think it's you've got to ask yourself, what do you expect of them each day, and what do you want them to achieve each day, and how important are different sorts of key aspects for you and your partner, and making sure that that's working well for the child. It's a really personal and hard question, actually.
Yeah, and like here's here's the thing though, right? So it's not about the right or the wrong answer. It's about what comes up for you, right? Yeah. And just hearing you speak, there's things that I'm learning. Now, look, Marina, which I think you met, you have, like, Marina's she knows what she wants, right? And that's cool. Me as a guy, I have a definite interest, but it's not something which I've given a whole great deal of thought to, right? Because in a way, I kind of know Marina's got it covered, right? However, I think it's a really valuable point, because there's definitely people which are watching now who'll be like, yeah, you know, like what would I do? What are the criteria? And again, like, the beauty about this sort of style is it's not about right or wrong answer. It's not, that's gone. It's about what comes up for you. And those 4 or 5 points are really valuable. Like,
one parent one day said to me, she asked me, she said, have you got like a family mission statement? Have you written a family mission statement for your family? And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, I think you should sit down and with your partner, you should write down your family mission statement, and every so often check in and make sure that your kids are on that path and meeting the family goals and the mission statement. And I thought that was a really... we do that if we're writing a business plan. We write a mission statement or a vision and values or an ethos, and we have a staff induction when someone starts new in a company. And I think sometimes we overlook that and look at the big picture and go, well, when our child is 12, what do we want them to be like? Or when they're 18, what do we expect them to be like going into adulthood? And I thought that was something really nice. And it's something that I would love to include in our enrolment process in reception, is getting the family units together and having the parents go over that process so that they can, have some reflection, because life's so busy and we forget to do that stuff. Life is so busy and we think, oh, let's just put them in a good school and that's going to work. A good school's not enough as well. It's about also those parents engaging together and sort of saying, well, how are we going to make this person better and better, and how are we going to constantly come back to a set of beliefs or a mission statement to make sure that we're on the right track. It was cool what this person said to me. Yeah,
that's epic. Like, that's very new to me. I never heard that before. And I'm sure a lot of people here haven't as well. And this is what I mean. Like, there's wisdom within us that we don't realize until someone throws a microphone in our face and a few difficult questions, and then things come up. It's like, where did that one come from? I had no idea. So you're going to watch us back and go like, damn, that was pretty good. So not meaning to put you on the spot, but with a mission statement, family mission statement, what kinds of things do you think it would involve? As in, what kind of, people were listening now and say, family mission statement sounds great, I'd love to do it. I'm not saying give us a breakdown of what that is, but like, what sorts of things do you think they could start them off thinking on what that could look like? Again, subjective point, nothing here is like it has to be this way. So I'm interested to get your comment and your thoughts on it.
I don't know, I guess I would mind map that out.
Yeah.
I'm a teacher, so I would just start by some, just by piecing together 20 keywords. Getting 20 keywords and pinning those on the fridge and letting them sit there for a week or two, and then coming back to it and having, constant conversation about it in the home, saying, what are the keywords that we think are important to our family or to this person, and then, over time trying to then create that into some sort of paragraph where you've got a mission statement for that family, or it could be for that individual. It just depends. Yeah.
Already what's come up for mine, is like resilience. So all these words, 20 words, like very helpful. Resilience, unity, like acceptance, acknowledgement, diversity, like all of these things are coming up. So my mind is already tripping. Thank you.
And then I guess what can happen is once that young person is at an age where they can be a part of that process. So if you've got an 8-year-old, they can definitely be a part of that process. Or if you have a 15-year-old and they've made a choice that's not so desirable, you can bring them back to those keywords or that mission statement and sort of say to them, well, let's talk through this. Let's see where you went wrong and how we can improve it. Or do you want to rewrite it so your behaviour then matches what you've just done? Like, you can then have more opportunities for discussion and collaboration, and it's not sort of that discipline, let's go in and let's sort of yell and scream and point out where you went wrong, but there can be more sort of, there's a process to it. Or if someone's done something epically wonderful, you can then go, hey, you did everything right, look, you hit that keyword, this is amazing. So
I think that's brilliant. Thank you. Now, someone had a question. Yeah.
Hi. Thank you for this inspiring conversation. I'm wondering, is there a specific skill or topic that you wish you had learned when you were in school or when you were younger? And if so, did you choose to focus or include that in the current curriculum in your school?
Thank you. Financial literacy is a big thing that I think I wish I learnt more of when I was at school. I didn't get much education about financial literacy, and I went to a great school. I wish that was something I learnt more of, how to run and manage my personal finances and how to budget, and also how to use Excel and different skills like that. I also wish I learnt more about well-being at school and food. The impact of food has on your body and, eating. That was only touched on very briefly, and I think that they're just such key things in our lives today. It's something I hope to achieve more of within our school, is to have more wellbeing and financial literacy. We have entrepreneurship as a high school subject when students are 12. So I definitely am, we are incorporating it. But of course we are a small school, so there's a limitation to the breadth of subjects we can have. But we have these goals and these plans that we'd like to implement in the future, definitely.
Awesome.
What a great question.
Thanks.
Yeah, great question. Any follow-up to that?
No, I just love hearing about it, especially the topics that you just talked about: entrepreneurship, well-being. I think mindset is also such an important one that I wish I had learned when I was in high school or like when I was younger. So, no, thank you. It's awesome to hear.
Thanks.
And like that holistic model that you have, I think is brilliant. It's just such a great way to approach it. And I think that really does set apart where education has kind of come from to where it can go to.
Yeah.
I think that's really critical.
I think so.
Yeah, love it. So does anyone else have any questions, comments? Good.
Protest.
or you want to heap some love on this wonderful woman called Llana. Yeah, I can see the heaping love. I can feel the love, the waves of love coming this way. Beautiful. All right, so look, what we'll do in about 2 minutes' time, we'll give maybe 3 or 4 minutes. We'll tend to talk a bit. So anything that you wish to leave with. So the way we do this is that we say, okay, so I'll do this bit of talk in a minute, and after that, it's like, is there anything that you want to leave people with? It might be something, it might be reiterating something that you've said already, or it might be something that you haven't got to talk about yet that maybe you wanted to leave with us, right? So yeah, you've probably got about three or 4 minutes to have a think on what that is. Before we do that, we have a question now. Okay.
Hi, Llana. I'm going to have a
question.
question for you. Okay, if you are blessed and you can open a second school, what kind of school will it be?
I would definitely love to open another school one day. I think it would start with a primary school. It would focus on an early intervention model, making sure that we have the same key aspects that we have now with our support team. What sort of school would it be? It would be purpose-built. It would be a beautiful wonderland for our children with lots of greenery and open play spaces. It would be idyllic, but it would also be a really challenging place for learning as well. So it would be a school that was slightly, I don't know how to explain it. I have a picture in my head. It's a dream. Let's see, I'm not going to say too much, but I do. I would love to open another school.
I say it's a brilliant question.
Thank you.
Great question. Really cool. Yeah, anyone else? You good? Okay, cool. So this is the time where you get a chance to think, whatever comes in, right? So just want to I'll thank Llana in a minute. Just want to thank you at home who's watching. So remember, this is SpeakuP Monday, Destination Indonesia. So an award-winning for motivation inbound tourism initiative is what it's really become. And unapologetically, we say that it's about representing and showcasing some amazing stories from Bali. And over the last 204 episodes, from captains of business to, spiritual, like I said, everyone in Bali is a coach, right, of some description. You can see a few smiles there, so like, So lots of coaches, and in all different areas of business: sustainability, ecotourism, climate technology, tech tourism, blockchain, and all the rest of that. By the way, on tomorrow we have another interview with Berwin Tanko from ECTA, so that will be another great interview, because a lot of things have shifted since our last interview. There's been a suspected breach that caused liquidity to evacuate at the rate of knots, and they're back now with a version 2. So I'll be asking him tomorrow what happened and what they have planned for the future, which will be quite interesting. On Clubhouse, which will also be tomorrow, that one will be tomorrow morning, is about women's empowerment and what are the next steps. So for those of you watching us on Clubhouse or listening to us on Clubhouse, the last 4 or 5 weeks have been dedicated towards women's empowerment. And there have been some incredible stories and people and amazing insights which have come out of that. So tomorrow morning we're going to go and explore what that looks like going forward. And so that's coming up tomorrow. And this week it's a big week. Tonight we've got Digital Nomad. I'll be moderating on Digital Nomad Week, which is a very big festival for digital nomads around the world. And I think on Thursday is another global forum, which is, I'll be hosting that one. Well, I'll be doing the opening keynote for that one, which is Unit Ventures. And then I think the following week on Friday will be a sustainability summit here in Bali, which is the number 2. So I'll be hosting that one as well. That one will be in Ubud at Mansions. So it's a packed week. And in many ways, that does, emphasize this new dimension to Bali that I spoke about in the beginning. So this mass tourism model that Bali had is no longer here. We don't know if it's ever going to come back. What we have now, right? So what we have now is obviously a mix of the existing, which is hospitality based, but then we also have this beautiful new dimension, which is about, as I mentioned before, tech tourism, climate tech. By the way, tech tourism is blockchain, startups, incubators, accelerators, all of that. Sustainability, as I mentioned before, cultural. It's attracting a remote worker. Within the next 20 years, 50% of the world's working population, which is 4 billion people, 50% will be working remotely. huge number, 2 billion people. Bali is already, one of those, remote working capitals of the world already. So as a tourism architect, what I do is I facilitate that movement. I facilitate that migration, that form of tailored tourism solutions for tourism boards and businesses in Bali or businesses looking to move to Bali. And then here, working with my brother Ichi, brother from another mother, we're here about how do we create and be part of, we don't own it, but how do we create and be part of this trusted network? Because trust in a place like Bali, some of the scary stories that I kind of heard from friends overseas, trust is one of the biggest impediments to growth. And so what we're doing is developing this network which goes in all directions, really. So people who want to move here for a short period, long period, who want to establish business here, know that there's a network. There's this fundamental, trusted network which you can come to and make sure that you're looked after and make sure that you can get to and achieve the things that you wanted to achieve in a sustainable way, which also helps the economically, spiritually, mentally Bali. So it's very focused to that contribution tourism model, which is not about and running away. It's about how do we contribute to what that's already here in a way that it's a win-win. And that's really what we're about and what we're setting up. So if that sounds good to you, watch these last 204 episodes of SpeakuP Monday. You'll see some incredible people doing some incredible projects which are all about that. So look forward to SpeakuP Monday, SpeakuP one word, Monday group on Facebook or YouTube, Instagram as well. Woo, deep breath. Exhale. So now I'm going to turn to you. I just want to acknowledge you, Sister Llana, for number one, saying yes. Number two, for being you. So, sitting in this seat isn't easy because it's open format. If you're here and you're wondering, what, if I've got I know what he's going to ask me. I know what's, expected of me. This is not for you. This is all like whatever comes in. Open format, deep dive. We learn about you. We learn about what you're doing. We learn about how you impact the world in a powerful, positive way and your contribution. And people watching tonight, I know, would have got that understanding about you and what you do, right? So I love that. So thank you so much. And thank you to you.
No worries.
I know you did so well, really. Like, you're going to watch this back and you're going to give yourself a pat on the back because, I really respect you, right? And acknowledge you for being that person and following through with your word, right? So without further ado, Sister Llana and Reece, over to you to see us out.
Okay. Well, I don't really have anything to add or to say, but I do want to thank the people I work with daily. They make going to work just an absolute dream. I get to be in a space. Actually, I was reading on my Facebook page a post about a week ago, and I posted on there about 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I can't remember, and it just said, I'm so lucky that I get to go to work every day and be proactively going to work. And I guess years on, I'm still feeling as blessed as, I feel over the moon that I wake up every day and I don't get out of bed and, oh my gosh, I've got to get to work. But I get out of bed and I go to work and I'm fully enthused and I'm just amazed by the people that I work with and the energy that exists with everyone in my community. So I guess it's really a thank you to those people that I work with and the support I have daily. And not just the people I work with, but are in my wider network, my parents and my partners and, my family and everyone that gives me the support and that boost, because it is hard trying to create a school. It's and teaching's a job that never turns off. And those people have been exceptionally patient and, kind and generous in supporting me, and I want to thank them. And I also want to thank the beautiful students who have given me, I've got a few students along the way that have been troublesome and hard work, but then years later they come back and thank me, and that makes it all worth it. And without them coming back and giving their gratitude, it doesn't actually, it propels you to that next step. It makes you go, right, I'm going to do more and more each day as much as I possibly can. So I guess I want to end just by saying thanks. And it's awesome to be a part of education in Bali, and I can't wait for the future.
Love it, love it. So ProEducation, everybody, and quick thank you to Tropical Nomad, Ichibella, Guzman, and Ayub. Round of applause. Thank you so much. Thank you.